All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at Coach Dave's work,
Okay.
specifically his approach to postural stability. And,
Mhm.
and like we've talked about before, this is an area that he has really focused on, and he's kind of developed this unique perspective on it.
Yeah,
So we're excited to kind of dig into this and see what we can learn.
absolutely.
One of the things that we found really fascinating is this idea that he has about rib flare
Okay.
and how it's often tied to our breathing, and particularly the way we use our diaphragms.
Interesting.
Uh-uh.
Yeah, what I think is so interesting about Coach Dave is that, he really looks beyond those typical fixes, right?
Right.
It's not just about like, oh, you have tight hip flexors or, you need to strengthen your core or whatever.
Right.
He really digs deeper into those like sensory misperceptions
Oh, wow.
and miscues coming from our own bodies that can contribute to a lack of postural stability.
So it's like our bodies are giving us bad intel.
Yeah, in a way.
That's wild.
It's like we're not getting accurate information about where we are in space and how to move efficiently.
Okay, so how does this all tie into rib flare then?
Well, one of the things that Coach Dave has observed is that rib flare is often connected to how we stabilize our bodies.
Okay.
And a lot of us, right, we have this tendency, and it's often unconscious, to favor our right side.
Interesting.
And this can cause the left rib cage to kind of lift up into that flared position.
So it's not just about like, tight muscles or
Right.
weak core strength. It's actually about how our brains are interpreting what our body's doing.
Exactly. And that's why he emphasizes the importance of sensory awareness, and particularly diaphragmatic awareness.
Okay.
He believes that by retraining our breathing patterns, we can actually re-educate our bodies and improve our overall alignment.
So how do we start tapping into this diaphragmatic awareness? I'll admit, I often forget to even think about my diaphragm.
Right. Well, one of the foundational exercises that Coach Dave recommends is the static back 90-90 position.
Okay.
Have you heard of that one?
I've seen this position before. What makes it so special in Coach Dave's approach?
Yeah. So in this position, you're lying on your back with your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor, hip width apart.
Okay.
And your knees and hips should both be forming 90-degree angles, hence the 90-90.
Makes sense.
But what Coach Dave emphasizes is feeling a neutral pelvis in this position.
Okay.
Now, a lot of people, when they get into this 90-90, they might notice that one hip wants to rotate externally more than the other, or that one side of their lower back feels more compressed against the floor.
Oh, interesting.
And this is highlighting that tendency we were talking about to favor one side,
Okay.
which can then contribute to rib flare.
Gotcha. So by simply lying there, we can start to identify these imbalances.
Exactly. It's all about bringing awareness to those subtle asymmetries.
Okay, what's next?
Well, once you're in that 90-90 position, Coach Dave then guides you to focus on your scapula positioning.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that your shoulder blades are lying flat and even on the floor, not winged or elevated.
Why is scapula position so important in this?
Well, because the position of your shoulder blades influences your entire shoulder girdle,
Okay.
which in turn can impact your neck and upper back health.
Oh, wow.
Right, so if one scapula is constantly out of place, it can create this chain reaction of misalignment throughout your upper body.
Wow. It's amazing how these seemingly small details can have such a big impact on our posture.
It really is, and it all comes back to those sensory misperceptions that we were talking about.
Okay.
So once you've found that neutral pelvis and scapula position, then the real work begins.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Diaphragmatic breathing.
Okay.
So in the static back 90-90, Coach Dave instructs you to focus on the rise and fall of your torso as you breathe, rather than just expanding your chest.
So it's not that shallow breathing we often do
Right.
when we're stressed or sitting at a desk all day.
Exactly. It's about using your diaphragm, that dome-shaped muscle that sits below your lungs, to create stability in your thoracic cavity. It's about engaging those deep core muscles and creating proper alignment from the inside out.
This is making so much sense. We often try to fix posture from the outside,
Yeah.
standing up straighter or
Yeah.
pulling our shoulders back. But Coach Dave is all about addressing those internal imbalances.
Exactly. And it all comes back to those sensory misperceptions that we were talking about.
Okay.
By focusing on diaphragmatic breathing in this static back 90-90, we can start to re-educate our bodies, create a more accurate perception of our alignment, and improve stability from the core outward.
This has been so eye-opening. Coach Dave's approach is really unique in the way he connects these seemingly disparate elements like rib flare breathing and sensory awareness.
It really is, and it all starts with that simple question of, how can we improve our body's internal communication system, so to speak, to create a more stable and aligned posture.
Now that you've learned about this approach, what subtle adjustments can you make in your own daily life to become more aware of these imbalances? That's a great question to ponder. Big thanks to Coach Dave for giving us so much to think about.
Absolutely.
And to all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep experimenting, and thanks for joining us on this deep dive.